Let's talk about some of the key communication things. We talked about that,
Sure. Yeah.
yesterday. This where what are some of the things in communication? Because I coach a boys soccer team, eighth graders, and I tell them all the time, guys, there's
So
seven
fun.
different ways to say something. Six of them you probably shouldn't, right? Let's find the right way to say this, and it comes down to
Nice.
tone, attitude, script, right? So let's talk through some of those
Sure.
key communication factors first that you found that can help corporate people in
Mhm.
communicating to the field.
Great. And I think that and there's so many wonderful models. And I know a lot of the people, there's brilliant people listening to this podcast right now. They're probably, oh yeah, I've got a whole change thing down. But I think over time, and I've had to manage a lot of changes in compensation, taking companies public, or one company in particular public was not used to that. And that's a whole
Yeah.
kind of shock, for the field and what changes. So I've managed some pretty significant, changes through the years. And I would boil it probably down into really kind of five components that are mine. And again, they're little pieces and nuggets from me. But the first one is really pulling together that group. And you and I, this because obviously the business that you're in, the business that I'm in, technology represents a major change, and major adjustments on so many levels. And you all know this, and everybody listening probably knows this as well. But a technology change is a big one, right? And so the first one that you have to look at really is pulling together that group. I know that one of our clients right now that's cutting over, the business has been around for decades. It's a true legacy company, and they're cutting over to a brand new experience, for their sales force and their leaders. And so, but it's really getting that buy-in. We know we need it. We know we must have it. We talk about, we as corporate people, we as suppliers, we are not responsible to build the business. What we're in the business of is building leaders, empowering leaders, giving them the tools to succeed. They are the ones that are going to build the business, right? So from that and getting all those people together, who is that core group going to be? 8, 10, 12 people.
And it's a mixture, right? It can't be 10 of the same people, right? You've got leaders who have
100%.
been around and may just be managing. There's others who maybe
That's right.
but aren't actively building. Then you have those that are in the trenches. We always try to do that when we do beta groups with our launches. We say, hey, find a wide variety, because we want to know of all the different types, because otherwise, if you just get one type, you may have someone who's not even building, and the tool or the change may not even impact them. Whereas, Jane in Wichita, who's in the trenches, it may have a massive impact on her business.
For sure.
So I think that's a key part
of
taking that feedback, right? And talk a little bit about, this was something that you told me you've had good experience with, where you take the feedback, but it's not a promise that you're going to implement everything this group.
Right. And I always like to lead when you launch those beta groups, right? When it all starts before the change is coming and the communication is all laid out. When you sit that that leadership group down, you really need to say this is a collaborative partnership, but you are here as advisors. This is your advisors. Okay. Because at the end of the day, the company needs to make the decision that makes sense on a lot of different levels that you may not even be involved in, and nor do we want you to be involved in, because you need to focus on what we need you that only you can do, which is build relationships and inspire and cast vision, be vision casters and build trust and belief. But at this point, it's an advisory role that you're serving, not a dictatorship here. So I think that establishing the ground rules is very helpful, and then reminding them throughout the process of the communications and the change that you're having to implement, of reminding out. Now, remember, because, I've seen it happen. I'm sure I've been guilty more than once of it, where I listen too well, and then they walk away thinking that it's now, okay, she's going to do it. And then they speak it to their teams, because of course they, even though they're not supposed to talk about it, of course they do, because it's the inside skinny, and it shows, it gets respect for them. Yeah.
No,
so
I think
you're right.
Key.
You're right. Establishing
that feedback, and then I guess the next step that you talk about, right, is you then have to communicate it. Going back to our communication point, communicate first the why. So talk through that point. After you gather the feedback and you make the change, why is it important to start there with explaining the why?
Yes, again, and explaining it to this leadership group, because then you can hone your message so that by the time it goes out to the next layer of leadership and then the masses, right? Kind of in that cone, of communication, right? So you want to start with, why do we have to change? Most of the time they already know. Okay. What is the change? What is it that we're going to be doing? And what is the impact that it's going to have, because, they may see it, oh, you're going to do this, but this is going to cut this level of my pay, or this is going to change this aspect of my life. But here is what you're going to get instead. So it's kind of like the benefits, so that if you take something away, you can demonstrate, the give back, right? And then it's like of course, the next question in their mind, okay, well, what is that? What is that? And how is that going to impact me? How is that going to impact my business? So you have to be ready to walk them through. And then, of course, the when, is the big thing, the timeline, and in that timeline, it has to be, you've got to give yourself time for change. It's when you rush the changes.
Yep.
That's really when you wreak havoc on your field and create that distraction mode. And as we know, time and distraction, the two enemies of direct selling, right? So that's when you go into this. All right, when and how? What is the timeline? Giving time for transition, grandfathering, whatever needs to happen. And then how do you measure it at the end of the day? So once it's all laid out and you're walking it through and you're ongoing, how do we measure the success, and how do we continue to communicate? Remember, this is why we change, because it's painful, right? It's painful for months. And sometimes I think I've seen many teams get to the end of a big implementation, a big change, a big cutover. And then everybody goes, whew, I'm so stinking relieved. Let's get on with our life. But then the sales force is out there saying, but because in their head, they've been doing it a certain way for years.
Yep.
And to them, it isn't give me this new thing and then leave me just cut me. And then because that there are things they don't want to let go of and that are painful, right? That's why it's so important in that strategy after, to remind them, this is how it's working, and getting those key people, that first group, to come in and say, look at how my team is growing. Look at how this change is impacting. Look at how this is benefiting, and trying to get them to focus on the win, because of course, the first thing they want to do is curl up into a ball and go back. I want my old system back.
Give me my old,
I want this back.
Benefit. Yep. No, and we've all seen it. And that's where the beauty of the beta group, when you can get the buy-in, they understand it. Then when it is rolled out to the field, the adoption is so much better, right? Because it's not just corporate dictating something or saying this is what's happening. You've got the buy-in originally. They've had success with it. I found it just to be so much more simple on that side. And technology can just be that way.